Hi guys, welcome to Commercial Law Tutorials, Law of Purchase and Sale. We have already covered the definition and the essentials, duties of the buyer and those of the seller, latent and patent defects, passing of risk, and delivery. Today we are moving on to lesson number 6, passing of ownership. In this lesson, we are going to define what ownership is. We'll look at the general rule in passing of ownership, then conditions necessary to pass ownership, ways of passing ownership, and at the end of the lesson, I'll give you popular exam questions relating to this lesson. The definition. Ownership is the sum of all possible rights in a thing. That is the absolute, full and complete right of dominion over property. That is ownership. It is a legal right to the possession of a thing. That is a right of a person to control a thing he possesses, enjoy that thing, subject to no restrictions except those imposed by the public and private law. So one has got the right to use the thing and enjoy its fruits, right to exclude others from using the thing, right to dispose that thing, and right to destroy it also. The general rule. The general rule is that ownership passes when price is paid or credit is agreed for movable things. Then registration in deeds office for immovable property. Conditions necessary to pass ownership. The thing must be legally capable of being owned. That is the first condition. One cannot pass ownership of things that can be owned, like air or public property like roads. Buyer must be legally competent to buy and seller must also be legally competent to sell. The price must have been paid. There must be serious intention to pass and receive ownership. The delivery of the thing must be made by the owner or his agent who is authorized to sell either expressly or impliedly. The seller must be the owner of the thing sold, otherwise ownership will not pass to the purchaser. This is because one cannot give another person greater rights than he himself has in a thing. This condition that the seller must be the owner of the thing sold has got exceptions. The first exception is property sold in order of court or by a messenger of court. Money or negotiable instrument is the other exception. The stolen property bought in an ordinary municipality market through public auction. Those are our exceptions. Ways of passing ownership. How is ownership passed from the seller to the buyer? We have original ways: Specification, Acquisitive Prescription, Commixtio, and Accession. We also have derivative ways: registration, delivery, tax sale, and marriage and community of property. Original acquisition of ownership. This is when we have the first person to acquire a thing. When one is the first person to acquire a thing. So ownership would have been created for the first time of an individual. That person does not have a predecessor with respect to the title of that thing. It is independent of any pre-existing rights over the same thing. So the thing is owned for the first time. We have the thing and it has the first owner. That is original acquisition of ownership. Under original ways of acquiring ownership, we have accession. It is a method of acquiring a real right in a thing when that thing is added or incorporated with another thing belonging to a person which he has just bought. For instance, A has got property 5 and he incorporates in his property another thing that has been bought. And this too becomes his property. This can be done through natural ways, like a cow which calves after sale, but still in the possession of the seller, or industrial means, through the conversion of two or more separate things into one entity, like weaving, writing, and painting. Specification occurs where new property rights are established as a result of some action upon existing property bought, resulting in a change of species. This is mainly manufacturing. Work and another material creates a new thing. That is, one works on a thing to create a new thing. So the new thing belongs to the person who created it, provided there's no contractual relationship between the person doing the work and the owner of the material used. That new thing belongs to the person who have created it, and he will be the first owner. The original way of acquiring ownership is done through specification in this way. Next, still under original ways of acquiring ownership, we have acquisitive prescription. It is a method of acquiring real rights to a property through the continuous possession by one person of another's property for an uninterrupted period of time to recover a debt. By meeting the statutory requirements of continuous possession, which vary from country to country, with peaceful and uninterrupted possession of the thing from the creditor, that is the owner, possession of the thing will finally ripen into ownership. So one will gain ownership of the thing through the operation of law. In Zimbabwe, it is 30 years for houses. Debt is cancelled by extinctive prescription, and debtor acquires the house through acquisitive prescription. So after a certain time period lapse, that thing now belongs to the holder or the person who is possessing that thing, if there was no interruption in the period required. Commission. It is about mixing of liquids, metals which are melted together, and the mingling of solids that has been bought to get another thing. So the thing that comes out of mixing and mingling belongs to the person who have done the work on those things. He will be the original owner of those things. So we have thing A, thing B, and thing C. They are mixed to give a new thing, that is commission. Derivative acquisition of ownership. That is another way of acquiring ownership. It is an acquisition of a property from a previous owner. The new owner derives title from a previous owner, which amounts to transfer of ownership. There is transferring of ownership under derivative ways of acquiring ownership. So one gets title of prior owner. And the real right in a thing is acquired from the predecessor by change of title of ownership. A new title is consequently affected by infirmities in that title of the predecessor. So one gets his title from another person, that is the previous owner of that thing. We have a seller, the owner of a thing, who changes his title and gives it to the buyer after the buyer purchases that thing, and the buyer becomes the new owner of thing A. Registration is a derivative way of acquiring ownership. It is used for immovable things that are bought. Ownership is transferred by registration through the responsible office in a country. For instance, land uses registration, and registration is done through the Zimbabwe Registrar's Office. So we are saying that there is the owner of thing G, who after selling, they go through registration with the buyer, and the buyer becomes the new owner of the thing G. Delivery. Delivery of goods made by the seller to the buyer passes ownership. Ownership of movables is transferred by actual or constructive delivery. That was discussed in our previous lesson, lesson number 5. Tax sale. A tax sale arises if taxes on a real property are not paid as expected to the government. Those taxes becomes a lien on that real property. After a specified period of accruing and not paying the taxes, the government body involved can sell the property at a tax sale. The purchaser of the real property at that tax sale acquires a valid title to the property. The money from the tax sale is then used to pay back the accrued taxes on that property. So we have the owner of property L. The property has got accrued taxes. Tax sale is done, and the new owner of property is given that property after the sale. Lastly, we have marriage in community of property. When a couple enters into a marriage in community of property, all the assets and debts from before the marriage are shared in a joint estate, and also the assets and debts acquired when they are married, they are also jointly shared. So there is automatic joint ownership of property by the parties to the marriage just after the marriage. So when one party purchases a thing, there is automatic joint ownership of that thing. They both own that thing. Let us now look at the questions. Define ownership and indicate the requirements for passing ownership in a thing sold under contract of sale. What are the methods used to acquire ownership in sale contracts? Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and like. After subscribing, if you haven't done so, please also remember to click on the notification bell so that you can be notified each time I post a new video.